Hello, this is Christine Boshin. This is Pieces in Action Verb podcast. I'm here with Bruce Oli Ohlson. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us, Oli.
Good morning.
So I am going to give you a very brief introduction just based on how I know of you, and then invite you to introduce yourself, and then we'll just jump into talking about bikes and whatever piece verbs we notice along the way. I know of you because I am on the Bike Conquered email list, and so I see you hopping into that conversation frequently to talk about different planning opportunities and participation opportunities that there are for those of us who ride bikes and are interested in bicycling to help the planners out there in our community be aware of the different issues that they can think about while they're planning a better project. So that's how I know of you. I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Ole Ohlson. I live in Pittsburgh, so that means that with Bike Conquered, I'm an interloper. But Bike Conquered is trying to get bike lanes and bike paths built in Concord, and Concord is in the way for most of the places that I want to go to. And it's always better to have a continuous network of bicycle facilities than it is to jump on and jump off of bike paths and routes and jump out into the street in front of the cars. So I want to encourage Bike Concord to continue to work because I'm lazy and selfish. I'm lazy because I don't own a car. I'm not willing to do the work to earn the money to buy a car. And I'm selfish because I use the facilities for which I'm an advocate.
Okay, that's I have never thought of you as being either lazy or selfish. um, and so I think maybe first if we could talk a little bit about bicycling. Um, you mentioned you don't own a car, and you mentioned so for those people who are listening to us that don't live here in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay, California area. Pittsburgh is a suburban city on the coast of the Delta that feeds into the San Francisco Bay, and Concord is a little bit inland. And so you're describing that you need to get from point A to point B, point A being home, point B somewhere else in Contra Costa County. You're biking through the town where I live, which is Concord. So, can you tell me first about biking? I think just what is it like for you to be a bicyclist, and how did you get started with that?
What is it like to be a bicyclist? Well, I'm in the minority, but bicycling is healthy and it's a lot faster than walking, and it's a way to get around, and it's a lot more convenient than using public transportation. And so I just ride a bicycle.
How long have you been riding a bicycle?
I started out at age 10
And
and
pretty much constant since then?
pretty much constant since then, yeah.
Did you grow up here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I was born in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, so this is your hometown for reals.
This is my hometown for real, yeah. I haven't lived in Pittsburgh all my life, but I've come back to Pittsburgh. It's a great place to live, and I probably will live here till I die.
And so Pittsburgh is a great place to live. There's just a lot of natural beauty around us here. And so I imagine you've seen a lot of changes to the roadways in the town of Pittsburgh and in the surrounding communities in terms of how many cars you have to share the road with and how easy or hard it is to ride your bicycle around.
I do not disagree with that statement. Yeah, when I first started riding a bicycle, we had 15,000 people in Pittsburgh, and now we're up to about 74,000 people in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
We have right now about 42 miles of bicycle facilities. That's lanes and paths. And that includes 1.5 miles of sharrows. Sharrows are not a good thing, unfortunately.
Can you tell us what a sharrow is?
A sharrow is the city's traffic engineer invites the bicyclist to go out and fight with the cars for a spot on the road.
So it's like whenever I'm riding my bike and I see a little icon that suggests that one lane of traffic shares the road with me on my bike, is that a sharrow?
Yeah, that's a sharrow.
Okay,
There
so
are,
it's like shared pathway.
well, it's a shared traffic lane.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so in your so I have just, I'm sitting somewhat on the sidelines of the Bike Concord email list, and so I've noticed you talking about having been hurt on your bicycle. Is that Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how many times you've been hurt riding your bicycle?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, I fell off my bicycle and broke my collarbone. I had a little help, but the police never caught up with the guy.
Oh my goodness.
And I've been knocked off on a couple of other occasions and not been injured seriously enough to be admitted to the hospital. And, these things happen.
So I have a list right here. This is that list of peace verbs that when I was thinking about inviting you, I wrote the ones that I think of when I think of you, and I think of healing. Healing is a peace verb. You've had these experiences and you've mended yourself back together, and you're voicing. This is another verb here. You're speaking up. You're speaking up for your own safety. You're speaking up for the safety of other bicycle riders. That's one of the things I see you doing, calling into planning commission meetings, getting onto committees, bicycle advocacy groups, getting to know the local planners, whether that is Caltrans that owns Highway 4 that comes through your bike route, whether that's City of Concord, who has development projects here and there that there's opportunities. I've noticed you speaking up for opportunities to make certain parts of that commute safer. So thank you for speaking up. Thank you for healing. Thank you for. I mean, it's not on this list, but I think getting back in the saddle is a peace verb. Whether that's a horse saddle or a bicycle saddle, not giving up, being willing to try again. I've seen you do a lot of those things.
I will not disagree with that.
Yeah.
I would like to say two things at this point. One is about sharrows.
Okay.
They're in the middle of the traffic lane. The traffic lane is not wide enough to put in either a marked shoulder or a real true bicycle lane. So the traffic engineer shrugs his shoulders and says, all right, go out and fight it out with the cars. All right. That symbol is kind of a stylized bicycle with an arrow pointing
Right.
in the direction the bicyclist should be riding. That's
Right.
in the direction of traffic. Okay. That is not a symbol painted on the asphalt of where a bicyclist got run over. All right. It is not.
Correct.
But it is an invitation to go out there and get run over.
Oh.
I am not a big
Yeah.
fan of sharrows. However, it's one of the tools in the toolkit that the traffic engineer has. And the second thing I'd like to say is that the city of Concord is moving strongly in the direction of creating more bicycle facilities throughout the city. The city of Concord is doing a great job.
That's
And thank you
fantastic.
to the city of Concord.
That's fantastic. It's good to know. And it seems like you mentioned, so the city of engineers has a tool. The city traffic engineers have a toolbox, and sharrows are included in that toolbox, but they're not necessarily the tool that you would recommend, just because it doesn't seem to actually be safe, as you have experienced personally, and as you are aware from the data that you see and other stories of people you know. And you're mentioning that the city is doing a good job building more bike facilities. Um, so I have also noticed you participating in that public planning process. And one thing I noticed was you've had to really delve into the planning process and educate yourself on how decisions get made in a city. So, how does a project move from an idea or someone buying a parcel of land to actually being built? And then, what are the different types of bicycle facilities that are in that toolbox? And so, can you tell us a little bit more about how you started and got involved in all of that? Are you a planner yourself? Is this a profession that you know about because you've gone to school and gotten a job as a planner, or are you just out there learning?
Uh, I would have to say the latter. I am just out there learning.
Wow.
However, my hobby is attending public meetings, paying attention, and speaking when appropriate. I am, though, pretty much a one issue fanatic, and I decide that it's appropriate to speak when bicycle facilities are involved. The
Got it.
rest of the time, I just pay attention and gather in what knowledge that I can. Um, this has
So,
been my hobby since about 2001
okay, I was wondering because I've noticed you really know a lot. So you've had a good 20 plus years involved in this process.
of paying attention and thinking about stuff and remembering and seeing how everything fits together. Yeah.
Wow.
When
Wow.
there when there was an opening on the Pittsburgh Planning Commission, I applied and was appointed and was reappointed on two more occasions for a total of 11 years serving on the Pittsburgh Planning Commission.
I got you. You have been involved professionally.
Well, uh, I haven't officially gone to school
Okay.
in planning except a couple of weekend courses for uh, how to be ethical as a planner, as required
Good.
by state law to take these classes
Right. Right.
sponsored by the organization for which I was a planning commissioner. Now, I have to say there's a difference between being a planner and being a planning commissioner.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the planner is formally trained in planning and tries to shepherd the applicant through the process to get the project built.
Okay, and so do they probably know about the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, they probably know about the various different city and county plans that are governing what can and cannot happen in that particular parcel. They probably know how to balance the public comments and to take in the different opinions from the interested parties. And they probably know about building codes and that sort of a thing. Would you say that's about right for a planner?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good analysis. But the planning commissioner is just an appointed position by the city council, and the planning commission is 7 people, and they get a say first run through on the project and the applicant, and the planner and the applicant get to request of the planning commission that we forward the project on to the city council for their final okay.
So you are deputized or appointed by the elected positions, the city council, those are elected positions. So you have been appointed by them to, it sounds like it's a pre-vetting process. It's a in-depth pre-vetting of a particular idea to see whether that idea should be actually brought to life in the city.
I don't know if I'd call it a pre-vetting process. It's certainly part of the process,
A step in
and
the
it's
process.
the
Okay.
first part of the process.
Okay.
But describing it as pre, that indicates it's kind of optional a little bit, somewhat, and
Okay.
it's not.
So it's definitely a step in the process.
It's definitely a step in the process.
And you all probably, as planning commissioners, go into more depth and detail than the city council would because they're looking for your recommendation.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Um, that's wonderful. So you have served on in that capacity in the city of Pittsburgh, and have you found, the other thing I was just imagining, and I wanted to ask you about is there's got to be in your service as a involved citizen for the last 20 years, you must have had some successes that you feel good about, and also you see the safety improving in your city and your surroundings, and there must have been also some I don't want to call them failures, but maybe missed opportunities. How do you manage that emotionally, and how do you keep going through that?
Okay. Let me tell you about my biggest success to date.
Wonderful. Love to hear
Okay.
about it.
Um, we have the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, which is all of Contra Costa County. In 1988, the citizens of the county voted to create the Contra Costa Transportation Authority and to tax ourselves a 0.5% sales tax and to spend that money on transportation projects,
Any kind of transportation.
any kind of transportation project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, back in the 1980s, we had the Highway 4 Bypass Authority formed,
Hmm.
wherein the cities of Oakley and Brentwood decided they didn't like Highway 4 running smack dab square through the middle of their downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they wanted Caltrans to build a freeway around their downtowns. Okay.
Got it.
So uh, they created a joint powers authority, which is just a technical term for an agreement, a group getting together and agreeing.
Mm-hmm.
And they planned and then eventually built the bypass Highway 4 around their two cities. Uh, Initially, the mayors of the city of Brentwood and the city of Oakley went to Caltrans and said, "Hey, build us a freeway. We don't like Highway 4 going through our downtowns."
Right.
And Caltrans threw back its head and laughed and said, "We don't build freeways anymore. We just own them
Oh,
and operate them and maintain them."
interesting.
So that's
Yeah.
why they created the Highway 4 Bypass Authority, because they made the agreement with Caltrans that, well, if we build the freeway, then will you take it over, own it, and operate it and maintain it? And
Oh.
Caltrans tugged on its beard a little bit and said, yeah, if you build it to our standards, we'll do that. Okay.
Okay. Oh, but
So,
by the way, I'm going to add a verb to your list. Use humor because I just love the concept of Caltrans having a beard and tugging on it.
okay. Okay.
Okay, so
So
Caltrans said yes, we'll maintain the facility if you go ahead and build it, this
if you go ahead
bypass.
and build it, right.
Okay.
So the Highway 4 Bypass Authority and Contra Costa Transportation Authority and the cities involved got together and created ECRFA, East Contra Costa Regional Fee and Finance Authority,
Oh,
to charge each new house a few dollars to go into the pot to pay for the new freeway. Right now, almost 35, 40 years later, every new house pays $30,000 to ECRFA. Every new house, and East Contra Costa has lots
I
of new
was just going to
houses.
say I mean, it was farmland in the time period that you talked about this starting, and now it's suburbs. I mean,
Mm-hmm,
there's new house upon new house out there. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So $30,000 per house. So,
per house.
um, wow, that's a
Yeah,
big
cool.
percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, that well, it's say an $800,000 house
Right.
and $30,000, you can do the math. It's a 0.5% or something. It's
My
not
goodness.
much.
And so that's actually um, a useful amount of money.
Oh yeah, yeah. Add up all the houses. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it paid for the freeway,
Okay.
right?
Right,
Right.
because
That's
I have
cool.
driven Highway 4 and I have not had to go through those downtowns. So, yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm in a roundabout way getting around to the fact that the Highway 4 Bypass Authority, as part of the requirements of building their freeway, they had to conduct each of the regional trails across the freeway. All right, there are three regional trails that the freeway would have cut if
Oh.
they weren't required to build a crossing for.
And
It was
so
the Del
those trails existed already, those regional
already
trails?
existing,
So those
yeah.
were places that you have been able to ride your bicycle since the 80s? These regional trails?
Um, I wasn't back then,
But
but
one could have.
the two out of the three regional trails are operated by East Bay Regional Park District.
Okay. Which is a
They are
wonderful
the
park
Delta de
district.
Anza Regional Trail, which crosses Highway 4 on the maintenance road of the canal.
Okay. Right.
Okay. They had to build a bridge anyway. And also, the bridge for the freeway went over the road for the trucks going into the canal maintenance area.
Okay.
So it was just, the designers of the freeway didn't have to do anything.
Okay. So
We,
there
we,
were
we
these three crossings, and so are you getting to that these crossings successfully happened?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All three
Okay.
of them. One
Wow.
of them is happening because I kept yelling about it. But let's get the
Right.
second crossing. That is also an East Bay Regional Park District crossing, and that is the Marsh Creek Regional Trail.
Oh.
The freeway designers had to build a bridge to get the canal, no, no, the creek, Marsh Creek, under the freeway. So they built the bridge a little higher so that we could fit the bicyclists on the bank of the Marsh Creek, and they built the bridge a little wider so we could fit the bicycle path in.
Wow.
And
Got it.
bada
Yeah.
boom, bada bing. Uh, the designers did not feel they needed permission from anybody to design it like this. I mean, it was an EIR requirement to cross the trails officially.
An environmental impact report requirement from the California Environmental Quality Act, which requires all sorts of environmental uses to be considered before a project can go forward. And
Yeah.
I'm just backing up for those people who are listening and don't know what an EIR is. Our friends
Oh,
out
okay.
in England or New Jersey, etc.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Okay.
yeah.
So the other trail crossing is the McCullum Aqueduct Trail.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
The
Right.
McCullum Aqueduct goes from Pardee Reservoir in the the sub hills of the Sierra Nevadas, and it leads all the way down to Oakland, and it's the East Bay Municipal Utility District's pipeline that gets water down to Oakland
Right.
and to several other communities in the Bay Area.
Taking
Okay.
Sierra snowmelt and bringing it down to the Bay Area, the East San Francisco Bay Area mostly.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. San Francisco gets its water also, but it gets it from the Tuolumne River from from Yosemite.
Right. Right.
Okay, yeah, that's an aside. That's neither here nor there.
But I
Okay,
think it's useful just to note that the three pathways you're talking about are co-located with water conveyance structures that are owned by two different water districts here in our area. There's the Contra Costa Water District, I believe, owns the Contra Costa Canal, and then the East Bay Municipal Utility District owns the other one that you were just talking about, the aqueduct.
Yeah, the McCollum Aqueduct.
Yes.
Okay. However, the freeway designers didn't have to build anything to get the freeway across the the aqueduct because it was buried.
Oh,
Okay, so they
oh, right,
could have just built the freeway flat on the ground, no problem.
right.
However, that would not have fulfilled the requirements of the EIR because
Mm-hmm,
the bicyclist couldn't have gotten across.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So the designers went to staff
mm-hmm,
and said, we probably ought to run this by the board. And
mm-hmm,
staff agreed. The designers figured out that the best, least expensive crossing for the bicyclists of this freeway would be a 14-foot wide by 9-foot tall concrete tube
mm-hmm,
under the freeway,
mm-hmm,
a culvert,
mm-hmm,
and they would stack a bunch of dirt on one side and stack a bunch of dirt on the other side,
mm-hmm.
and the freeway would very gently go up to across and gently back down the other side of this culvert. The motorist would never even know, and the
Sure.
bicyclist would get across the freeway through this culvert, no problem.
Interesting.
However,
Yeah.
they thought it was going to cost about $1 million
Mm-hmm,
extra to build this culvert.
mm-hmm.
And since it was a separate and distinct facility, staff figured, well, let's put it on the agenda so the board of directors can say, yeah, let's spend this $1 million.
And which board was this?
This was the Highway 4 Bypass Authority,
Okay, so the specific authority. Okay.
the specific
Mm-hmm,
Highway 4 Bypass Authority.
mm-hmm.
And staff was so sure that the board of directors was going to say, yeah, yeah, EIR, we have to obey the rules. Let's
Right,
do it.
right.
That they put it on the consent calendar.
Oh,
All
so
right.
just can I back you up for a moment because not everyone would know what this is, but in here in California, board politics or just the way things work around here, uh, those of us who have worked for a board and need to take something before the board, if we think that that board is going to have absolutely no problem and will totally agree with us, and it's really a non-issue, then that gets put on the consent calendar, which gets voted all at once as a lump sum rather than hearing and allowing for public comment and conversation and discussion and maybe even changes. So I'm just throwing that in as somebody that used to work for the water board for 20 years and put a bunch of stuff on consent calendars.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Okay. However, at the board meeting, this was in 2001,
Mm-hmm.
they were still designing the freeway. They hadn't started construction.
Mm-hmm.
The culvert for the bicyclists for the McCollum Aqueduct Trail was on the consent calendar, and the chair of the board pulled it from the consent calendar
Oh,
and said, I'm not absolutely positive of his words. It's been 21 years.
sure.
However, he said something to the effect of, I cannot see my way clear to spend motorist money on
Ah.
bicyclist amenities.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
All right.
Right.
Staff did not argue with him. Staff said, oh, okay. I
Ah.
won't say staff was a milk toast, but staff didn't like fights. Okay, so
Sure. Sure.
this item was pulled from the calendar, and that was the end of that. However, it was an EIR requirement.
Right. And so for that project, so that project passed environmental clearance, promising that this was a project feature, is what that
Mm-hmm.
means. So this
Yep.
was a promise, and that was how it got past the environmental clearance
Mm-hmm.
step.
Yeah. So staff, within a week, went to the recreation department guy
Mm-hmm.
in Brentwood
Mm-hmm.
because this segment of freeway is completely in Brentwood right there,
Got
and
it.
said something to the effect that, well, we're not going to build you guys a crossing right now because you haven't built the trail up to each side of the freeway yet. But
Oh, yeah.
in this memorandum of understanding, the Highway 4 Bypass Authority, will promise to build a bridge over the freeway starting within 1 year after you build the trail up to each side of the freeway.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So,
not
so
unreasonable.
staff thought we're
Was
trying to figure
in
out another way. Yeah.
Staff was in CYA mode. All right,
Okay.
he was making sure that he didn't get pinned for not building this crossing.
Fair enough, right? I mean, to be
Absolutely.
in that position and to realize that there's a legal requirement that this needs to happen and see that
Mhm.
your board just said, no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Okay. So he
Okay.
said, this is another way we can go. We can go over the freeway.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. Bridges are a lot more expensive
Okay.
than culverts.
Right. Because a culvert
Okay.
is basically like some kind of corrugated metal, huge pipe, right? It's a
Yeah,
kind of,
basically a
yeah.
huge pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the chair of the board of directors did not like the fact that this memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement, I'm not sure which it was,
Sure.
came across the agenda packet of their next meeting, but he did not negate the fact that the agreement was made.
Okay.
Okay. And that was the end of that. However, every year or two, because I would normally attend these meetings,
Uh huh.
every year or two thereafter, I would remind the board of directors that, hey, they have to build a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Brentwood built their trail segments within 2 more years.
Oh, okay.
So
So they came
by
through and did their part. The
they
city
did
did.
their
Yeah.
part. So by 2004, the Highway 4 Bypass Authority should have begun building their bridge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And each time I mentioned it, there was silence in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Staff looked down.
Mm-hmm.
Staff has since retired.
Okay.
Nobody said anything, and then they'd go on to the next item. Okay.
Wow. So just can I pause on that for a moment? Because it's part of what you're doing is you're helping a community change, right? Like there's a certain mentality that drives decisions, and so you're showing up consistently over time and voicing. So there's that verb again that I wanted to call out is you're speaking up. You're speaking up and you're noticing resistance and so anyhow, I just wanted to kind of give that context to what you're talking about. So thanks for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, sure. Hey, you're welcome. But remember, I'm lazy and selfish. The
Okay, I know
selfish
that's what you're
part.
saying. You're saying lazy and selfish, but I think this is a lot of hard work that's going into this. So you're there and you're speaking up every year, month, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. You're reminding them.
I'm reminding, yeah, it's every couple of years only.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So they built the freeway, and there was no bridge and there was no culvert. And when they were done with the freeway, they dragged Caltrans in and said, "Well, here's our freeway." And they had been checking. The engineers that were designing the freeway, had been checking with the engineers at Caltrans to make sure we fulfilled all the requirements, and Caltrans was happy with it. So
Right.
in 2015, there was the transfer ceremony, and
Oh.
the official ownership of the Highway 4 bypass was transferred from the Highway 4 Bypass Authority to Caltrans.
2015, that's a long time later.
A long time later,
Yeah.
still no
Okay.
bridge.
Oh, wow. Was
Okay.
was Caltrans stroking Caltrans' beard with satisfaction?
No,
Okay.
Caltrans, when I raised my hand in the meeting and said, we got this EIR requirement
Yeah.
that there has to be a crossing,
In
and here's the
2015.
memorandum. I waved it around where the
Oh.
Highway 4 Bypass Authority promised to build a bridge, and it hasn't yet. But I said something to the effect that I'm really looking forward to Caltrans building this bridge now,
Right.
since it is an EIR requirement.
Right.
Caltrans drew back, to continue the metaphor, stroked its beard, and
Right.
then came forth and said, any EIR requirements stay with the Highway 4 Bypass Authority. They don't
Right.
transfer over to Caltrans.
Right. And I'm sure that Caltrans lawyers got involved in this because there's lawsuits around these sorts of things. CEQA is a law, and if it's not followed, then there can be lawsuits.
Absolutely. I was urged on several occasions to just mention the word lawsuit, and the Highway 4 Bypass Authority will hop to and begin building this bridge. But uh, that would turn my relationship with this organization and with just about everybody else into an adversarial position, and I didn't want to do that.
Right, because your strategy has been, from what I can tell, has been collegiality and participation, not antagonism. And I think that's a useful backdrop to paint to effectively engaging as a citizen and helping the planning process along to create better communities. So you were at this 2015 meeting, this ceremony between Caltrans and the Transportation Authority, and you mentioned, hey, there's this memorandum of understanding and this requirement from the EIR, and Caltrans said that goes back to the Transportation Authority. What happened then?
Well, the Highway 4 Bypass Authority wanted to dissolve itself
Ah,
because it had fulfilled what it wanted to do, which was to build a freeway around the downtowns of Oakley and Brentwood.
right.
For them to dissolve themselves, they had to have the Contra Costa Transportation Authority's permission,
Oh,
and Transportation Authority said, all right, we'll build the bridge, darn it.
they did.
They did.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the bridge construction started, we're in, it started in late March of this year,
2022. Okay.
2022.
Post pandemic.
Yeah, just post-pandemic.
So,
And this bridge is costing them $13.5 million.
and so they could have squeezed by with a $1 million culvert
Mm-hmm.
that the traffic would have barely noticed, but now they're creating a $13.5 million bridge
Yeah, big
over the
heavy duty
freeway.
bridge.
Wow. And so I'm thinking, there's two bridges that I bike sometimes, or actually one of them that I don't bike over, but I know it's there, and another one that I bike over a few times a week, and there's a Iron Horse Trail bridge over Ignacio Valley in Walnut Creek, and then there's another bridge over Treat on the same Iron Horse Trail. So this bridge over a freeway is, I don't know, 3 times as big as these other bridges that go over busy local traffic. Would you say it's got to be a big bridge to go over a
It's got to
freeway?
be a big bridge, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that caused the construction of this bridge to move forward was and is BART is going to build a parking lot right at this bridge crossing, and they want to build their next e-BART station in the median of the freeway there and want it accessible from both sides.
So
So
BART is
they joined my chorus and said, yeah, we want this bridge too. And that
okay.
kind of nudged over.
And so for people that don't live around here, BART is basically our commuter train network in the Bay Area, and BART has been expanding from the central San Francisco Bay Area out into the further communities. And so this new facility that you're talking about would be serving the bedroom communities that are further out from Oakland and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you built a coalition. You talked to people. You must have reached out and met staff at all of these different entities. Like you must have met people over at BART. You must have met people over at the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. You clearly met the fellow that retired by now from the local transportation authority and also Caltrans. So there's a lot of I don't know if handshaking happening because maybe a lot of these things are happening online, but you've had to meet a lot of people.
I have to agree with that statement. But the important thing about what I did was keep reminding that this is an EIR requirement. I'm not going to sue you, but somebody might.
Right.
And you need
Right.
to come through. And every year or two, I would remind. And finally, the bridge is starting to get built.
Wow. And
$14.5 million worth.
so here on this list, this list of peace verbs is persist. So you have persisted.
Persistence, yeah,
Yeah.
persistence is good. It's
Yeah.
my hobby.
It's your hobby.
Attending public meetings, paying attention, and
Yeah.
speaking when appropriate. Yeah,
I
that's persistence right there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, have you also been mentoring other people to do the same?
No,
You don't think so? Because I would say you mentored me a little bit. There was a planning commission meeting that I called into. You know how lately we're doing everything on Zoom. So, City of Concord Planning Commission, I called in about a particular project where they had an opportunity to create a safer way for the bikes to get through a bridge location. And so you coached me and helped me think about how to speak up. So I'd
really?
say you mentored me. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I think you probably know that some people can feel shy and overwhelmed to call in or stand up at a public meeting. And so you've been doing this for, 25 years maybe. And so you gave me some encouragement and also even some tips on how to navigate the electronic aspect of it. How to call in when the meeting starts, how to find the Zoom link, all of that sort of a thing.
Oh, well,
So
great.
thank you.
Thank you for saying thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So gosh, that's just a lot. So that was a success. That was a major success, and
That was a major success. Yeah.
persistence or to persist is at the center of that story. So, and then also there's something, and I'm trying to see if I have an actual verb to describe this. Be warm. You're warm. And I think that matters because you're saying, I didn't say the word lawsuit. You didn't want to antagonize anyone. You came at this with warmth and persistence. And so when you come across a situation that, I mean, you just described it here, but I think there's probably been others where maybe you don't see that the tool coming out of the toolbox, which would maybe be the better tool for bicyclist safety. Maybe you see the Sharrows coming up. Maybe you see that there's just not a consideration for a bike path or a bike passage. That can be disappointing, but how do you navigate that in terms of thinking about the bigger picture and the next the next issue that might come up? How do you manage like I might just give up, and I'm just wondering how you have it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, well, I don't. It, it's not a case of giving up. It's a case of moving on to the next project if I don't get that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
maybe
all.
there's a little bit of letting go. So rather than giving up, maybe the verb there is just you let go and you move on.
Yeah, move on. Yeah. There's plenty of projects out there that need somebody to advocate for them.
Right.
And if I try advocating on one project and I don't get anywhere, there are plenty more waiting for me.
Sure. Sure. And I think when you're riding your bicycle, so you, how many miles do you put on your bicycle a week approximately?
I try for 80 a week.
Okay, wow. So, and are you going to appointments, or this is just you do this? This is recreational. Like, how do you use your bicycle?
My bicycle is transportation.
So wherever you need to go, it's getting you there.
Wherever I need to go, I ride my bicycle.
Okay, so
Sometimes
so
I sometimes I also ride the bicycle to BART and ride BART
got
to
it
where I'm
right
going
because BART does
also.
allow for bicycles on the cars, at least not during peak commute hours. You can bring your bike onto the
No,
the BART.
24 or the entire time that BART is open, you're allowed to take your bicycle on BART nowadays, and
That's
maybe for the
amazing.
last 6 years or so.
Okay, that's
Previous
amazing.
to that, peak hours were not allowed.
Right. Okay. That might be right around the time that I stopped commuting into Oakland. So I remember, yeah. Anyhow, I that's really neat. So I think part of the process of riding your bike around, you know personally in terms of your regular pathways where you feel safe or where you are safe and where all of a sudden, oh, my safety just dissolved and now I'm either sharing the bicycle lane with the cars or I'm on a shoulder or maybe there's not even a shoulder. And so you know because you bike where these pinch points are. And so is that part of your as you are paying attention to the public process, whether that's in Pittsburgh or Concord or maybe Walnut Creek or any of these other communities where you might be biking, is that part of how you scan through an agenda for a public meeting?
I do keep my eye on agendas, and I do, especially now that we have Zoom, uh, speak up when appropriate. But you're absolutely right in your analysis. I find out what's going on out there by going out there and riding my bicycle.
Right. So, and I had a similar experience recently where I had to drop off an item for a colleague at our different office. And so I was biking away. I've never been before. And I felt great. Oh, this is safe. This is safe. Oh my gosh, what happened to the shoulder?
What
And
happened to
why,
it? Yeah.
why is the freeway traffic coming onto this local street right where I have to bike? Oh, I hope I make it alive. So you have these moments on a bicycle that can surprise you. Uh, and but then you find out, okay, that's an intersection that I now I know that the city needs to be thinking about as you're biking
Mhm.
along.
Yeah, true statement. And each route that I go, I think about if I don't like riding on this route, is there an alternative?
Right, right, because it wouldn't really be possible for any city to make every single street bikeable. And
Oh,
so,
yes, it would. I have
oh,
to
I'm sorry.
disagree.
Oh, please tell me more. Okay.
Well, every street in the city allows bicycles.
Yeah.
Every street in the city allows cars.
Yeah.
Every street in the city that allows cars has minimum requirements for the safety of the cars.
Uh-huh.
Every city does not have minimum requirements for safety of bicycles, but there's no
Okay.
reason we shouldn't.
Right. Oh, okay. Thank you for helping me reconsider that. So so I think what you're doing in part is you are pointing out the cultural bias that we might ignore. And, we might not, like I happen to have been to Denmark and riding around or driving around their city or walking around their city, the bike lanes are on par with the car lanes in terms of space and the amount of people that are getting from their home to their office on a bicycle. It might even outweigh the people that are riding their cars. And then they've got the buses. And so, a lot of this comes down to cultural, um, just how we conceive of our shared spaces and what feels normal to us and what doesn't feel normal. And so I think you're bringing a voice of uh, perspective. It's like, hey, we could have minimal requirements for bicycles. Why wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Why don't we? And that is actually, I think, the piece verb envision. You're envisioning a different way that we could be building our cities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So you're,
there you go. Yeah, you have to remember we have transportation corridors through our cities. We call them streets or
Right.
roads or avenues.
Right.
Uh, Up until the late 1980s, they were pretty much exclusively for automobiles. All right. We cannot, for the most part, widen our existing streets.
Okay.
The curbs and gutters are fixed, the sidewalks are fixed, the
Mm-hmm.
houses or whatever is built up to the edge of the street is fixed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have to, if we want to add another mode of transportation to this public street, we're going to have to reduce the exclusive use of that street for motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a bicyclist, I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who has to breathe the air, I have no problem with reducing the size of the street for the number of automobiles. As someone who lives on planet Earth,
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with reducing the amount of fossil fuels that are
Mm-hmm.
burned getting people around.
Mm-hmm.
You have to realize that 50% of all trips for every human being in the United States are under 5 miles long.
Wow.
50% under 5 miles.
Wow.
That trip does not have to be taken by automobile
Right.
every time. I'm not
Right.
saying absolutely
Right.
everybody can ride their bicycle on short trips around their home,
Right.
but a lot more can than currently are.
I would say yes, as somebody who has in the last few years made a transition in that direction. So where I'm riding my bike 8 miles to get to work, and then more and more, 5 miles to go to the grocery store, or 3 miles to go to my plot at the community garden, and I do appreciate and thank you for the work that you're doing, because I know that you and other people who are actively speaking up for planning are helping me be safer on those rides, because I was mentioning to you before we started recording that I have a history riding on highways as a teenager, and so I'm desensitized to riding next to traffic. It's something I am used to, and I'm not as frightened by as many other people who maybe haven't ever gotten on their bike, and then would be. I wear a safety vest. I have lights if I'm going to be in low light situations, and I have moments where I'm frightened, when I'm
Mhm.
riding around and I'm frightened. And so I know I know what you're doing is really important, and I want to say thank you. And I also just want to say, you haven't talked about this part of it, but it's delightful to be on a bicycle. I don't get road rage when I do my grocery shopping on a bicycle. I feel delight and also wonder, and I think it's a tactile experience. I feel the skin on. I feel the wind on my skin. I see the trees. I even have conversations with people. Uh, I think you could probably speak to that too. The
Mhm. Yeah,
adventure.
yeah, yeah. It's good for the heart.
It's good for the heart.
Hmm.
Physically and emotionally good for the heart, right?
Hmm. There you go. Both true.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. We've covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything else that when you're thinking about having this conversation, that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, my next project.
Oh, great.
Okay. The Iron Horse Trail
Yes.
extends from the Benicia Martinez Bridge down to Alameda County, south of, no, Livermore is in Alameda County, so it's
Yeah. Yeah.
south of whatever this next city down there is,
Okay.
Dublin.
Dublin or Pleasanton? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at any rate, the 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 Iron Horse Trail is a former railroad trail,
Hence
and
the
it
name.
it
Yeah.
connects. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, in the Diablo Valley, we have the Contra Costa Canal Trail.
Yes.
which makes a C-shaped loop around the Diablo Valley, starting in Martinez, looping down to Walnut Creek, and ending up currently in Concord.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is to extend the Contra Costa Canal Trail into the former Concord Naval Weapons Station, the
Mm-hmm.
portion of it that the East Bay Regional Park District took over.
Okay.
Okay. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority
Mm-hmm.
is spending $500 million rebuilding the Highway 4, Highway 680 interchange
Hmm.
to accommodate automobiles better.
Okay.
The Contra Costa Canal Trail is in the southwest quadrant of this interchange.
Mm-hmm.
The Iron Horse Trail is in the northeast quadrant of this interchange.
No kidding. I didn't
It,
realize they all converged at that spot.
they all come close together.
Wow.
So there is no reason not to connect the two trails through this project that is under construction right now anyway. And
Wow.
in fact, the expense would be a rounding error in the
Ah.
counting of the dollars.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's just a few pennies comparatively to
Mm-hmm.
get a trail, not a bike lane on the public street that we share with the cars, but a real trail that is separate from all the motor vehicles on its own plot of land,
Yes.
connecting these two segments
Yes.
of also trail.
Yeah.
And also, we have the Pacheco Transit Hub, which is in this interchange also. So we could stop off there too.
So, wow. So, what you're talking about would allow, for example, people that live in Martinez to ride their bicycle to the nearest BART station, which safely on a trail. If they could move from the canal trail over to the Iron Horse Trail, then they could end up at Pleasant Hill BART station and go anywhere they need to go for their commute
Mhm.
safely without
Yeah,
being on a
yeah,
sharrow or on a shoulder.
right. Shoulders are good, 3 feet or more.
Okay.
Bike lanes are good, 4 feet or more, five
Okay.
feet.
Right.
And the my only complaint is where there is no space for the bicycle.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I got a commitment from the previous executive director of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We ought to
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the current executive director of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority not only said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but he also committed a little more strongly
Mm-hmm.
to the construction of this trail segment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, as an aside, he and his wife and kid are a one-car family. The
Unusual.
executive director of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority rides his bicycle to work every day,
Wow.
so he
Wow.
understands.
Yeah.
So we're going to get this, but as with my previous bridge, I just keep reminding every once in
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah. So you pay attention and you speak up when appropriate. So
Here you
I
go.
think I'm going to add those to your list of peace verbs. Paying
Okay.
attention and speaking up when appropriate.
Well, great.
Yeah. So there, you said that they were building already. Does that mean that their design plans would have to be modified to do this, or they've already considered this as part of their design and they're moving forward with it?
They haven't already considered it as part of their design,
Okay.
but there surely is a way to get through.
Right. Right.
I could describe it to you in detail if you wanted to hear, but it's just, it's something that engineers worry about, engineers and advocates.
Right. 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 And I have noticed as an advocate that you're catching up with those engineers, and that's no small feat. Says environmental scientist that works with engineers. I mean, it's not That's a lot of detail. That's what I'm trying to say. You are paying
Hmm.
attention to a lot of detail.
Yeah, I do not disagree with that.
Yeah. So, what's the time frame for this next project in terms of or, to the extent that you're able to say? Do you think this is something you're watching over the next 5 years to shepherd it through?
Um, that's a good question. The timeline is for uh, adjusting this interchange, California Highway 4 and Interstate 680 is not completely fixed, but it is listed in phases.
Okay.
Um, it was designed in the early 1950s, and it
Oh,
has real tight curly Q ramps moving from one direction to the other.
yeah.
And that is not built like that nowadays.
Right.
So they have to build overpasses to get the traffic that's moving from, say, westbound Highway 4 over to southbound Interstate 680 instead of a real short, tight, curly Q.
Got it. Yeah. And
So,
I've driven that intersection. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's pretty fingernail biting to come through
yeah,
those curly cues.
yeah, well put.
Yeah.
So I am not at all worried that we will get our trail, but I cannot give a timeline for it. And that's why I pay attention and keep reminding.
Right. Right. Wow, that's exciting. Thanks for telling me about all of that.
All right, great. Yeah. These are my two big projects. If I if I get both of these projects done before I die, I'm a happy camper. And listen, I don't plan to die anytime soon.
Okay.
So there are
Fa-
other projects in the future. I just haven't figured them out yet.
Okay, those are the ones that are currently within your awareness and your focus.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
want another project?
Yeah.
You
Well,
have
let's
time
hear
to
it.
talk?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. You know about the Concord Naval Weapons Station?
Yeah, and just for the folks that don't live here and know about this, basically, this was exactly what that sounds like, a very vast piece of property between the city of Pittsburgh and the city of Concord and the town of Clyde that stored weapons for the Navy and has been decommissioned. And the city of Concord has the opportunity to annex it basically and take it in. And it's been a very long conversation uh, and planning process that has gotten started and stopped and started and stopped. So that's just a little background on the Naval Weapons Station.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Um, you're most of the way right, but one slight
Oh,
difference.
please.
The Concord Naval Weapons Station transferred to the Army. The Army, this was in the mid 1980s,
Okay.
the Army kept the Tidewater portion,
Oh,
and they are allowing the Navy and the Army and the military to uh, give the inland portion away or do something with it.
okay. So basically, this piece of land does actually abut to the delta. Is that right? So there's
Right, right,
and so this is when we say the delta, that's like the two major rivers that are draining into the San Francisco Bay. So before it becomes bay proper, and it's still looking more like a river, but it's tidally influenced.
right, right.
Yeah.
It's the Sacramento San Joaquin River,
Okay.
and there's a weapons station on each coast. The
Oh.
one on the East Coast is in New Jersey, and
Okay.
then there's this one. And these two stations, military bases, are for the transfer of munitions from railroad cars and occasionally trucks into ships for shipment, good term there, shipment,
Right.
throughout either the Pacific Theater or the Atlantic Theater.
Okay. So these are major
Okay,
facilities for the U.S. military.
right. Okay, so the when the Concord Naval Weapons Station was still the Concord Naval Weapons Station, they didn't allow bicycles to go through.
Or anyone else
Obvious.
for that matter, right?
Well, they allowed Highway 4, the
Oh,
freeway, to
yeah,
go through.
that's true. Yeah.
Okay. So this is more history. Lean back, put your feet up on the desk.
Okay.
Tom Torlakson
Uh-huh.
was a City of Antioch councilman. Then he was a Contra Costa County supervisor.
Uh-huh.
Then he was a State of California assemblyman. Then he was a State of California senator.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was something else too, but I'm not sure what else. But he was a strong bicycle rider. He
Didn't know
lived
that.
in Antioch.
Yeah.
And when he was the uh, county supervisor, he would ride his bicycle several times a week between his home and Martinez, which
No
has
joke.
the official county seat.
That's like, isn't that a 20-mile one-way ride?
It's longer than that from his house.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah,
Wow.
strong rider.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So back in the old days, the Port Chicago Highway was open and
Mm-hmm.
it extended from Clyde, which
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned, which is
Small
right
town.
on the western edge of the Naval Weapons Station,
Mm-hmm.
to Nichols, which is close to Bay Point, which is on the eastern edge.
And it's a small town that I've lived here for over 20 years and never heard of it. Okay, Nichols. But I do know where Bay Point is. So Bay Point is on the
Okay,
edge of Pittsburgh. Yeah.
yeah, on the edge of Pittsburgh, exactly. It's an aside. I won't tell you stories about Nichols right now. But when the Army took over the Naval Weapons Station, they wanted to close this public road through its base.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, it was a county road. They had to have the county's permission.
Okay.
Tom Torlakson rode his bicycle on Port Chicago Highway. It's
Yeah.
almost a direct route from his home to Martinez.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
he said, well, how am I going to get to Martinez from my home if you close this street?
Yeah.
And the Army scratched its head for a while and they called Caltrans in, and Caltrans
The
tugged on its
beard.
beard for a while and said, yeah, how are we going to get bicyclists through there, given that we have a bicycle path over Willow Pass just on the north side of Highway 4, but
Okay.
it ends at the Willow Pass Road Freeway interchange,
Mm-hmm.
right at the edge of the former Concord Naval Weapons Station.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow Willow Pass Road into the city of Concord,
Mm-hmm.
there is a very narrow, short hump bridge over a railroad track
Mm-hmm.
in the inland portion of the Naval Weapons Station, narrow as in two 11-foot lanes, no sidewalks.
Wow, that's even rough for a car to get through.
It is,
11-foot
they
lane,
have
yeah.
head-on collisions there regularly.
Wow. Yeah.
Bicyclists with any brains do not ride on this bridge.
Scary.
It was built during World War II as
Okay.
part of the construction of what was then the Concord Naval Weapons Station.
Right.
So Tom said, I am not going to go across that bridge. So how am I going to get across the Concord Naval Weapons Station? Now, I have to tell you the story about Caltrans and its ability to determine when bicyclists can ride on freeway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's California Vehicle Code 21960. Letter A says the State Highway Transportation Department, which is Caltrans,
Right.
has the ability to determine when bicyclists can ride on freeways and when bicyclists cannot ride on freeways.
So you're using the word when, not the word where. So this is a time of day or a
No,
day
no,
of the week?
wrong word.
Oh, okay.
Where?
Okay, where? Okay.
Okay.
Where they
And
can ride on.
actually, Caltrans allows bicycles on 25% of all the freeway system in the state of California.
That makes sense to me because Caltrans facilities can be in rural areas as well as highly populated areas. So there's I could see that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
25%, a whole quarter
25%
of the state highways allow bicyclists. Huh?
of the state freeway system.
Freeways. Oh, excuse
Freeway
me.
system,
Okay.
okay? And uh, California Vehicle Code 21960 letter B says any segments of freeway that allow bicycles has to have a sign saying bicycles are allowed, and any segment of freeway that does not allow bicycles has to have a sign at every on-ramp that says bicycles not allowed.
Well, that would make sense because you want to know before you get on the freeway whether or not you're allowed to be there.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So bicycles, until Tom said, well, how am I going to get to Martinez? Were
Right.
not allowed on that segment of Highway 4.
Well, okay. Got it.
And
Yeah.
he said, I'm not going on that death trap of a bridge.
Fair
And
enough, Tom
Caltrans,
Torlakson.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Caltrans analyzed that bridge and said, yeah, it's smart for a bicycle not to go on that bridge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Caltrans then, on February 11, 1995, said bicycles are allowed on Highway 4 between Willow Pass Road interchange and Port Chicago Highway interchange, both of which are in Concord.
Yeah.
All right. So Tom had his route.
Wow. Okay. So
Okay.
you've got this is so interesting. You are a citizen who's paying attention. You've been a planning commissioner. So Tom is a public servant, has been moving up the ranks of elected positions. Both bicyclists, both speaking up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All
There
right.
you
So he
go.
spoke up, and Caltrans allowed for this connection to be made on a what is it, a mile stretch of Highway
Yeah,
4?
it's
Okay.
about a mile and a quarter segment.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So not all, this is an aside, but it's kind of a funny one. Not all of the highway patrol know that bicycles are permitted on this segment of freeway.
That makes sense because it's probably pretty unusual in their particular jurisdiction for that to be allowed, right? Not too many other stretches of freeways in their area would have that allowed, right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've
Okay.
got
So,
the chips, the cops.
yeah, the
Yeah.
California Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
I have been riding my bicycle regularly on this segment of freeway
Yeah.
since 2006.
Okay.
And I have been stopped 23 times by law enforcement,
Wow.
most of whom were the Highway Patrol, but once was a City of Concord policeman,
Okay.
and once was a county sheriff.
Okay.
Okay, but just about all of them are Highway Patrol, and they say bicycles are not allowed on freeways. Bad boy, don't go on the freeway anymore. And
Uh-huh.
then I go into my song and dance about how bicycles are allowed on freeway. The
Uh-huh.
sign in position is an MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, R5-10A,
Wow.
which prohibits bicycles, and R5-10AM, M for modified, which
Uh-huh.
allows bicycles.
Do you
So
carry around the code with you in your back pocket to pull out and show to these cops when they
no,
pull you
I've
over?
just memorized the
Okay.
two small segments that have bearing.
Right.
So each time I get stopped, I offer to the highway patrol, well, look, I'll lock my bicycle to the guardrail here. I'll get in the back of your car and we'll take a lap. It's only a mile in each direction. And I'll point out the signs, MUTCD R5-10AM, M for modified, allowing bicycles. There are 11 signs because not only are the on-ramp signs, but also there's a pictograph of a bicycle halfway down saying a pictograph of a bicycle indicating expect bicycles on
Expect
this
bicycles.
segment of
Right.
freeway.
Right.
And then on the Delta de Anza Regional Trail, just before it gets to the Willow Pass Road interchange,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big sign that says, bicycles for North Concord use Highway 4 shoulder.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that it's allowed, and it's actually, even though it's pretty dicey to be a bicycle on a freeway shoulder, it's safer than being a bicycle on that particular 1940s bridge.
There you go. Well put. Yep, yep, yep. That's it.
And have you had 2.5 mile loop car rides in the back of a patrol car, or do they just say, "Oh, you sound like you know what you're talking about," and then they move along?
Um, they don't phrase it quite like that, but I've never gotten a car ride in the back of the car.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
they probably go back at the end of their shift and double check and learn something new about their own job.
right.
Yeah.
Well, when the when the individual goes through the California Highway Patrol Academy, they have so much stuff that they have to
Oh,
learn.
absolutely.
This is just something that doesn't get taught, that they have to pick up on the job.
Sure, and any job
I'm
is
the
like that.
teacher.
Any job is like that, right?
Right, any job is
Especially
like that.
especially in government. I think when you have to learn laws, there's just so much to learn.
So much to learn. I have, on many occasions, offered my driver's license and said, give me a ticket. Everything will be cool then, because I I never have gotten a ticket from the highway patrol for being on the shoulder. Although one highway patrolman said, the next time I see you on the shoulder here, I'm going to stop, arrest you, and haul you to jail.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
I don't want to see you on the shoulder of this freeway ever again.
Well, on one hand, that seems a little heavy-handed, but what's behind that is that he doesn't want you to be hurt, and
Exactly.
and he would rather uh, put on the dad voice or the cop voice and talk about that than see you hurt. And so I'm
Hmm.
sure that you've been stopped that many times because they're alarmed and they want to make sure you're okay,
Hmm.
and that's what
Yep.
that's coming
Yep.
from. Yeah.
Yep.
And
So I have offered my driver's license so that I could not only get the ticket, but also, after the supervisor looks over the ticket, and the ticket moves down the line to the individual in the highway patrol or the law enforcement agency who determines whether to pursue this ticket or ignore it, right? To prosecute, right? The person who makes the decisions about prosecuting will say to the officer who wrote the ticket, you have to write a dismissed in the interest of justice ticket,
okay.
because bicycles are in fact allowed on that segment of freeway.
Right.
Okay. I have never gotten one of those
Oh,
either.
okay. So
That
that
would
you
be such a trophy. I would frame the two pieces of paper, one ticket, one dismissed in the interest of justice.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
the official ribbon on or bow on top of it all, right?
But it's never happened.
Ah, well. Well, it's a fun story anyhow, and I think it speaks to your speaking up when appropriate and advocating with kindness and with a certain degree of humor, um, and just understanding that everyone is a person out there doing their job wherever wherever you encounter these people and their public duties, they're all just people doing their jobs, and it
Mhm.
sounds like you're keeping that in the back of your mind when you're talking with all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And besides, they're the one with the gun on their hip.
Oh, sure. There's always that. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's
So
just
that's my next project also, to get bicycles off this segment of freeway,
okay.
right?
And so
Now,
that relates to that bridge, doesn't it? If you,
that relates to the bridge, yes.
yeah.
When the city of Concord takes over this land, they will tear down that bridge and they will make a 4-lane road, Willow Pass Road,
Oh.
from the Highway 4 Willow Pass Road interchange
Mm-hmm.
into downtown Concord. All
Mm-hmm.
right. In my opinion, that's a mistake
Hmm.
because when the freeway gets clogged up with traffic, you're going
Hmm.
to get motorists taking a shortcut through downtown Concord.
And so
All
then
right.
Concord's going to be calling it was Oakley and Brentwood and saying, "What did you do when you got motorists off of your downtown?"
Good connection. Yeah. However, the you know the story about the city of Concord taking over this land from the Navy.
Just a little bit. Just being someone who lives in Concord, I just know a little.
Okay, well, they had one developer lined up,
Right.
and they had an argument with that developer about whether to require union labor to build the houses,
Oh. Uh-huh.
and they walked over that.
Oh.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now the city of Concord is negotiating with a second developer. This is the
Yes.
Sino organization, which is based in the city of Concord. All
And
right,
has built
hometown.
so
Go
many
ahead.
neighborhoods. That Casino's built lots of neighborhoods around
Lots
here.
of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this hometown boy makes good.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
wonderful. However, in the initial agreement with the second developer,
Mm-hmm.
the city of Concord not only said you have to have all union labor
Hmm.
building these houses, and there are
Mm-hmm.
going to be 13,000 houses,
Yeah. It's a
over a
whole
million
new.
square feet of commercial space,
It's a whole new, almost a whole new town. Right.
almost a whole new town.
Right.
And it's going to be based around the North Concord BART station, too.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They said not only do you have to, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, union labor. Not only do you have to have union labor, but 25% of the houses that you build
Mm-hmm.
have to be for low income people.
25%.
25%. That's
Okay.
gigantic.
That's it.
Okay.
That's bigger than we tend to see around here as a
Yeah,
as an
yeah,
objective.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a difficulty for the city of Concord and not only the Sino organization, but
Mm-hmm.
any developer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you got to use union labor, that's
Mm-hmm.
expensive.
Sure.
If you got to sell the houses for not much money,
Where's
you're
the
not
profit
going to make
margin?
much money.
Right.
So this is, bump
Right.
problem.
Right.
Okay. So we don't know what's going to happen.
It's big talk in our little town, though. I'm not a particularly political person, but I do hear about this. It's hard not to when you're living here and knowing a little bit about what's going on around town.
Mhm.
So this planning process is another opportunity to speak up when appropriate for safe passage for bicycle travelers, and this particular bridge is in that area and could be addressed with that development if and when the development actually happens, right?
True statement. True
Okay.
statement. The um, the Concord Naval Weapons Station officially closed the inland portion in 2004.
Yeah,
In
it's been a
2000,
while. Yeah.
yeah, long time
Yeah.
ago,
Right.
uh, 18 years ago.
Right.
In 2005, they could have dynamited this bridge, plowed the rubble to the side,
Uh-huh.
and made Willow Pass Road
Uh-huh.
a nice at grade road across the railroad tracks right there.
Right.
They
It could
did
have
not.
happened. Yeah.
They haven't.
Yeah.
They still could.
Mm-hmm.
Or for bicyclists, they don't even have to tear down that bridge.
Hmm.
All they got to do is put a gate in the chain link fence
Mm-hmm.
on each side of the road, on
Mm-hmm.
each side of the bridge, total of 4 gates,
Mm-hmm.
throw some asphalt down
Mm-hmm.
across the railroad tracks, and the
Oh.
bicyclist then could ride down Willow Pass Road, which has nice shoulders on it, all the way into downtown Concord, except for this stupid death trap bridge.
Right, right. So I hear what you're doing here is you're sitting outside of the planning process in the sense that you are not a planning commissioner or a city planner for the city of Concord. So you're somewhat of an outside voice coming in and offering some options and perspectives that maybe they don't have in their current list of tools, or maybe not even in their current list of plans, because uh, plans are a big part of how things get built, right? In terms of think a plan gets approved before a project happens. And so the city has plans that are related to this bridge, and you're coming in with some fresh ideas and reminding the people that are officially part of that process, hey, this physically could work, that physically could work. And so do I understand correctly that there's a railway that is parallel to Willow Pass there? And so you're talking about putting asphalt down. Is it on? Are the tracks being used, or is this a decommissioned railway?
The tracks are not being used. It was in World War II, they have these gigantic concrete bunkers
Oh yeah,
that you can see from the freeway if
yeah,
you
yeah.
look toward Concord.
Right.
Okay, they would use, World War II, we didn't have freeways back then.
Oh no, we didn't need to. We had so much fewer people.
So much fewer people, and they moved stuff around with railways.
Oh, so railways were a lot more important in terms of
Well, a
transportation.
lot more
Okay.
important. They would put three railroad cars full of munitions in each one of those about 50 concrete bunkers,
Wow.
and then move the railway cars on a railroad track down to the dock and load it into the ship to go to the Pacific Theater of War,
So these railroad tracks were just specific and local to the weapon station.
the weapon
It
station.
wasn't a. It wasn't like Union Pacific Railroad was taking goods from Pittsburgh to like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or something like that. This was just a local track.
Correct.
Okay.
Local only to the Naval Weapons Station.
Right.
And
Okay.
these railroad tracks cross Willow Pass Road perpendicular, and the bridge just goes over the railroad track.
Oh, so if you were riding a bicycle and provided a way to just uh, go over those railroad tracks, you could get from one side of the creek. It's a creek, right? Or what is it that's being crossed? The bridge goes over.
The bridge goes over the railroad
Oh,
tracks.
it goes over the railroad tracks. Okay,
There's
okay,
also a
yeah,
creek there. There's
yeah.
also a road there,
Okay,
Kinney Avenue.
okay.
But, it's just a short sight distance, narrow, hump, high-speed bridge.
Right, right. So you're speaking up. You're paying attention, and you're speaking up when appropriate.
Bike Concord is leading the charge on this one. I'm
Okay,
just bringing that up.
yeah. So Bike Concord being the bicycle advocacy group here in the city of Concord, and they're the ones paying attention and speaking up when appropriate.
Hmm.
Got it.
And I'm helping too.
Right, right. And that gets back to because you ride your bike and because you ride your bike at this particular place, you know firsthand what the details are.
Yeah, well, I have gone over that short sight distance, narrow, high-speed hump bridge once.
Oh,
All right.
and
After that, it's
enough.
always been the freeway.
Wow. Okay. So it brings us back to the story about the freeway. So you would rather be on a busy commute freeway than on this bridge. And you have made that choice enough times to be pulled over 24 times?
23 times.
23 times. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, approximately once a year.
Oh, wow.
Approximately 1% of my trips.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
So
speaks a
there's
lot.
that option to get the bicyclists off the freeway, which is either get us around the bridge or destroy the bridge. All right, that's one option. Another option is the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, that is the big money people for transportation projects in Contra Costa County. They're the ones that get 0.5% sales tax.
Right.
They have done analyses and determined that traffic would flow much better if we added one traffic lane eastbound on Highway 4
Okay.
between Highway 242 and the truck climbing lane on Willow Pass, the hill.
Okay.
It's about 3 miles total.
Right.
And
Right.
they want to do that. They've talked Caltrans, and Caltrans has said, before you guys can start construction, you have to get bicycles off that segment of freeway.
Oh, okay. So then that pushes pressure onto the Contra Costa Transportation Authority to maybe help the city of Concord with that particular bridge. Is that
No, no.
no? No.
The Contra Costa Transportation Authority hired a consultant, and in conjunction with East Bay Regional Park District, they determined that the hot setup would be to build a bicycle path on the north side of Highway 4 between the Willow Pass Road interchange down to the bridge over Diablo Creek, cross heading south under Highway 4 right there, using the existing bridge overhead for the freeway, and then have this path go on down to North Concord BART.
Okay.
Okay, that would be the hot setup.
And is
The East Bay Regional Park District currently has the Delta de Anza Regional Trail ending at the Willow Pass Road interchange,
okay.
but they want to continue it to the Iron Horse Trail.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but they can't because they don't want to spend the money. It's a big deal to build this segment of bicycle path through the Concord Naval Weapons Station. It's gonna, time has to go by before the city of Concord and their principal developer figure things out.
Sure.
But maybe we can light a fire under the Highway 4 Bypass Authority and, no, not them. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority, I
Okay.
apologize.
No
Little
worries.
brain fade there. And build this segment of Delta de Anza Regional Trail. Maybe. So those are two options right there.
So that's really exciting. That's really exciting to think about how these pinch points can be creatively addressed and how to make partnerships, pull together the partnerships that could bring them about in one way or another.
In one way or another. There we go.
Yeah, with persistence.
So there we are, 3 projects that I'm working on.
Okay, well,
one of them's under construction, so it's done.
and I think, I said definitely using humor is one of your peace verbs, but for you to start this conversation by saying I'm lazy and selfish is I think that's pretty funny actually, because
Okay.
you're clearly yeah, you use these facilities, but you're also clearly thinking about all of the other people that can and should and would really benefit from being able to bike from point A to point B in our greater extended community across these various different towns.
Yeah, agreed. I'm lazy and selfish. Lazy because I don't want to work to earn the money to buy a car.
Fair enough.
Selfish because I use the facilities for which I advocate.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, that's just been a wealth of information and a lot of fun. And I do want to ask you if there's any other things you wanted to talk about this morning.
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've had a wonderful peace conversation. Oli, thank you so much. Appreciate your
Okay,
time.
yeah, sure.